welcome back to another episode of Can I Come Over? We are your hosts, Nicole,
Jovia,
and Renata. We're so happy to have you back for another episode. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about, what is your idea of home? What's your concept of home? We'll dive deep, but before that, our current obsessions. Nicole, can you tell me what your current obsession is?
Start us off. My current obsession is the artist Somber, Sombr. He's been blowing up on TikTok right now, so that's how I found him in the first place. But I love his songs. It's so summery, which is perfect for this season right now. And the one that's blowing up on TikTok is Back to Friends, which I love. And there's also his songs Undressed or Do I Ever Cross Your Mind? Love.
Do I Ever Cross Your Mind is such a pretty one. Whenever I imagine it, the lyrics are so hard-hitting, but I imagine running across a prairie.
Yep.
And it's so good.
It's so good. I love it. It's that's been my obsession right now. I've been listening to his songs on loop, so that's mine. What's yours, Jovia?
Mine, it's again another all-time obsession. It's a book that I read for the first time when I was, no, that's too early. I think I was 15 when I read it for the first time. And it's been my all-time obsession ever since. And it's the book that got me into reading again, which is The Book Thief by Marcus Zak.
She always tells us about it.
I know. I love that book. I think it's a really interestingly written book and, just a really nice, lovely, small story. I don't want to give anything away about it because going into it blind is the best way to read this book. It's great. It's lovely. It makes you cry. It makes you be why? If you see the state of my copy of The Book Thief, you realize I have been reading it for ages.
Yep, I've seen it.
It's battered down. It's battered down.
Oh my god, I can see it from here.
I have thrown it across the room, reading it, being this is insane.
Oh
why?
My god.
Why would anybody write this? But it's amazing. I would highly recommend.
Page 137, there's tears on it.
I kid you not, there are.
We're why is it a little wrinkle? There's just tears.
Just tears.
That's really good. I'd really have to get to reading that. Another one to the list.
I bought that book. I have the physical copy, but I just haven't been able to read it. But
It's down on the list, guys. Yes. Our book list. My obsession for this week is the podcast Minds in Neutral. So the hosts are Shahad and Rena. They're both incredible women who I love and adore and who I know personally. If you guys are interested in something a bit of, maybe pop culture or women's health, similar themes to the ones that we at times cover here, and religion as well, it's a really, really, really good listen. I love hearing them out. I love listening to them talk, especially because Rena is one of my closest friends. So whenever I miss her, I just play one of her podcasts. And I'm But I highly recommend it. They've been working so hard and they've been doing incredible strides. So for any of you interested, Minds in Neutral. Let's jump right into it. Nicole.
I will start us off again.
Yes.
We're going to talk about what is your idea of home. This is a very heavy topic, I think, for the three of us because we have lived in multiple locations. So it's definitely an interesting one. But so to say, an unpopular, but I think it's becoming more of a popular opinion of mine, is that you don't have to have one singular home. You don't have to have one place, just one singular place that you associate to home. You don't have to have one singular room that you associate to home. It can be a multitude of things. It can be multiple objects, people, meals, songs, etc. that constitute who you are as a person, in my opinion. There's a video that I came across on YouTube from this creator, Verdant Vinyl. And she has a video up called, I think it was called How Do I Think of Home or something like that. I'll put it in the description. But in this video, it's like 11 minutes long, and she's just giving a monologue of what is home to her. And it's so beautiful. She explains it so beautifully, how home is all the people, the objects, habits, and cultures that make us who we are, make, each and every single individual. Because I think that is basically that the best way to explain what each human being is all of these things that I've mentioned already. And I resonate with that definition so much. And I also think that, we can find home in like not just multiple places, but in multiple people. Every time we meet someone new, we become closer to that person, I think we always take away something from them, whether it's a habit or whether it's an opinion that they had or whatever it is. We always take something from them as well. And even if it's any place that we visit or we live in, I think we leave a part of ourselves there. And there's a part of us that's always going to be there, that's always going to be associated with that place as well. And that still makes that part so special to us, to the point that it can be considered home in a way. But home to me is, personally, it's, what I've already mentioned, these things and the people, because I've had a hard time defining what home is to me, because I've lived in 3 different places now, and it's a big battle of like, where do I feel the most at home? But I feel at home in all of these places, because it's as long as I'm with the people that I love and I feel content with myself and I'm doing the things that I love, I feel at home wherever it is. But what is your guys' definition of home? If you had to, briefly say something, because I know it can be a long conversation.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that I want to say, but I will keep them for my part of the podcast today. But I think, in summary, it's where I feel that I have roots. That's a very, like, at least Mexican saying, like, when you have roots somewhere, like your raíces, we call it in Spanish. Wherever it is that I feel I have roots. So that might be, it doesn't need to be like genetic roots or things like that. Like I could be 0.111111%, I don't know, from Slovakia or something like that. And it's not what I mean. I mean roots in the sense of places where you have some sort of experience and where you build a connection with it, either through people, places, or things. So I think that is my definition of it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. That's very true. But for me personally, I think home is a lot to do with the people. Almost like I would say 99% to do with the people. And the rest is to do with like the sense of nostalgia. And I don't mean nostalgia in the sense of like I am away or like it's far away from me, it's in the past, so I'm being nostalgic about it. I mean nostalgia more in the sense of like home is like if I'm having a bad day or if I'm having an odd day, whatever it is that I crave for, whoever it is that I crave for, is home to me. Now, if that is coming back to my apartment here, then that's what home is for me in the moment. But if it is wanting to see my friends from earlier or my parents or other family members, then that's home to me in that moment. So for me, home is very ambiguous, and it's a lot of things, but it's also not a lot of things at the same time. So it's very ambiguous to me in that sense.
Would you say like it's like the good type of nostalgia, sort of?
Like, what do you mean?
Like if it's, because you said nostalgia in the sense of like, oh, this almost like a heaviness or a dread, but
No,
like the
no,
opposite of like
I'm-
the type of nostalgia.
I didn't mean nostalgia, like as in, I didn't mean not nostalgia in that sense,
Mhm.
because like it's not reminiscent.
Mhm.
It's not nostalgia in the sense that it's not reminiscent of anything. It's just what I crave in the moment.
Mhm.
Now, it may have been a feeling I've had in the past when I was 5 years old, or it may be for a person that I is no longer like that I'm no longer physically in my life, or it just is very ambiguous. By not nostalgia, I meant that it's not reminiscent.
Yeah.
It's like a craving, like I
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. And that's what, like, I think it's okay that it's ambiguous as well. A lot of people, like, I saw a couple, like, Reddit posts and stuff that it was a discussion between multiple people on, like, what is your idea of home? And a lot of people were saying, I don't know, like, I don't feel belong to one place. But then there was also, interestingly enough, people saying, I feel belong to all of these places. You know, I feel like I belong to all these places. So it's just, or to all these people because of all the attachments that I have. And as, you know, human beings, we've done migration and immigration, whatever it is. And moving so much also creates a sense of familiarity to a certain extent. Like some people who have moved so often, they find comfort in the action of moving itself. Even they consider that home sometimes, which is very interesting. But you know, speaking of the whole like migration aspect of it, a lot of kids specifically, or like people who are children of immigration, they often feel a sense of alienation or a sense of not knowing where they belong because they are foreigners in their hometown because they didn't grow up there, whereas in the place that they are growing up in, they sometimes feel like outsiders. Simply could be just because of the cultural shift. You know, I think when you're children of immigration, you kind of just have like a middle ground between the two, which doesn't adapt to your hometown, or neither does it feel fully connected to the place that you're growing up. And then there's also aspects of like code switching and things like this that they have to adapt to these places. So it's almost like as if it eludes a feeling of not having enough of that culture or not having enough of this culture, etc.
I think it's really interesting because and again in Spanish we have this one saying which is kind of it just kind of encapsulates all of that very perfectly.
Yeah.
It's ni de aquí ni de allá. It's not from here, not from there.
Neither there nor
Neither,
here.
yeah. And we say it a lot specifically when it comes to the Mexico to US immigration and people who are third culture kids or who are kids of immigrants, and that experience that you get exactly that detachment from your own country but lack of connection to a certain place, and it's just this middle ground where you're left in between and alienated from both sides as well.
Where you're not enough of either or. Like you're not enough of your home country, but then you're also not enough of the other one.
Simply because of being a third culture kid. But I think the best way to, like, you know, for people like us who are all children of immigration, the best way to embrace these aspects of our lives and kind of create the concept of home through these is to just embrace that mosaic of different factors that resonate the most with you. Like I think, again, bringing a metaphor into this, home is like a playlist because it can be a meal, it can be a festival, it can be a room, it can be a friend, it can be a song, it can be different genres of song, it can be different languages. All of these can constitute a person's definition of home. And that's basically my concluding point to this part.
I think it's really, I like that, the mosaic of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also, it's interesting to see the type of triggers that have this sense of home as well. You talked about, like at a place or the act of moving, but sometimes it's even down to sensory triggers. And I want to talk about this. So there was an article published titled "The Psychology in Smell" by the Fifth Sense UK. So it's like an publication, so to say. And they talk about just the general science and psychology behind it. So when it comes to olfactory memory, you have, as soon as you smell, the first thing or the first area that it arrives to is the limbic system, which is kind of like up here, behind, almost inside of the brain. And also referred to as olfactory memory receptor. And it is in charge of identifying and processing the sense of smell. So it's the primary receptor of the sensory information. And it is a huge, 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 huge important factor that plays a major role in controlling both mood, memory, behavior, and even emotion. So a lot of things here. And it's one of the reasons why smell is recognized as probably the most, not important, but the major trigger when it comes to memory. And it's super, super linked, as well as it being a huge emotional trigger. So you have both of these factors that are highly linked. There's no wonder that you smell a perfume that you wore a couple of years later and all of a sudden you're in trance of what happened.
Yeah.
Because smell and olfactory senses specifically is hugely important and a really good way of recalling long forgotten experiences or events. Things that you've put in the back of your mind that you've stored away and you've said, no, I'm not going to think about this, and you forget about it. Smell can be a huge trigger. Let us know, guys. How many times has it happened to you that you're walking down the street, you smell something, and you're stopped dead in your tracks?
The other day, I went to a restaurant and I found a tissue paper.
Oh my god, the tissue paper!
And the smell of it reminded me exactly of my grandma's closet.
Now, when she says a tissue paper, she doesn't mean like she picked it up from the floor.
No, it was like from the dispenser. Like the entire roll was
She stole the roll later that day.
She didn't steal the roll. She just took a couple and she was smelling it for the rest of the week.
And I've now folded it and kept it in my journal because it reminds me of my grandma's closet. But yeah, that has happened to me so many times.
So crazy. And there's places that have these like specific smells, Again, the smell of an old perfume, sometimes certain flowers or fragrance, like stronger fragrances that can be either from the trees that we grew up around, for me, and this happened the other day as well. When we were out, we went to a garden and there was rosemary.
Yeah.
And I grabbed it, did the same thing as Nicole. I grabbed it and I put it in my pocket because rosemary reminds me of both my grandma's place and then later on our own place. And even things of places of worship, the smell of incense, the smell of, I forget the name, but it's like this, almost like a stick that you also burn. It's a different type of incense.
Yeah.
In Spanish, it's palo santo, which just means like saint stick. But those type of smells, if you grow up around church or mosque or synagogue, you are familiar with them, and they are also huge contributors of, this feeling. And as a result, even when you're far from home, you can feel at home at places of worship, at random restaurants, in the middle of the streets, because of the fact that we link those memories and emotions with our sense of smell. And I think it's a really good way of also having the idea of people as home. Jovi mentioned it. Sometimes home is not a place, sometimes home is people.
Yeah.
And it can also be linked to the fact that people have certain smells. But I think we all do this where we keep a sweater or a jacket, especially when we come back from home, something that has just been freshly washed, to keep it, and you keep it in the back, and sometimes we'll just go and smell it. Because it's people, it's the people, it's your mom, it's your dad, it's your siblings, it's your friends, your anyone who you consider as home. and just having that there is so comforting. And it can get very tricky when you don't feel attached to a place rather than a person, but it can just be as easily as explained as the fact that for a lot of people, like Nicole mentioned, people who immigrate constantly, when you are moving around so much, sometimes the only constant in your life are people rather than places.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself more drawn to that rather than a physical location that may or may not be there, because you don't have that permanence in that aspect of your life. Alternatively, there's this other article that says, titled The Psychology Behind Instilling a Sense of Home by Lauren Suval for the Psychology Today. And she quotes, humans naturally crave a sense of belonging. And it's almost like, why? Why do we feel like we have to belong somewhere, right? We have like patriotism and nationalism and all these things. But why do we have to feel like we need to belong somewhere if we constantly migrate? And it's a part of our entire history. It's part of why we ended up in so many places of the world. If now we live in a highly globalized world where we're going everywhere, we're taking flights here and there, why do we need to feel this? It's this natural want and need to belong to somewhere. And it can be a byproduct of an evolutionary need to create long-lasting relationships in order to survive, because this then guaranteed that you had access to shelter, food, and water. So it goes back all the way to our primitive years as humans, as people, as Homo sapiens. And from this comes the idea that we genuinely need it. It's just a sense of an idea of survival. Yeah. It's just a thing of survival. And finding a home has also been studied, and the idea of like finding or having a solid idea of home or a place of attachment has been positively associated with the quality of life satisfaction, and a lot more health benefits, which can also be it's almost self-explanatory, because you have like a constant reassurance, and although you might have an identity crisis in every single other aspect of your life,
at least you have this.
At least you have this, but it's not a guaranteed. And the three of us, I can assure you, we've all had our identity crises when it comes to this idea of home.
Yeah.
And it could come differently for a lot of different people at different times of life. When you're a kid, when you're older, when you're later down in life. And I think it can get very tricky and overwhelming. If you are moving for the first time abroad, or changing schools even, if you are a kid that has like dual or triple or quadruple citizenship in different places, this idea of home can get very tricky and overwhelming. Yeah. But I'm going to give you guys some tips as to how I've managed to create a sense of home, because it's not something that came to me naturally, and it took a lot of effort. But my short and quick recipe is to, in the space that you find or that you want to make home, if you want to attach to a place specifically, make it your own. Putting up posters, photographs, lights, anything that makes it your own, no matter how long or how little you're going to be in that place. If you are staying in a dorm and you have this idea of, oh, it's only for a year, do it. Because I made that mistake in the past so many times, and it cost this like huge Koul, because there are times where you just desperately need that sense of home and sense of belonging. And if you can find it in the places where you feel safe, then that's a huge plus. Yeah. You have to also create bonds around you. Friends, acquaintances, maybe family, people where you can rely on and who you can connect yourself with. For me, it was these two beautiful women and so many other incredible people that I have met along the way. And being able to have that is a huge help, because then you need to be able to fill that space up with memories. That's how you create a sense of home. Yeah. It's every single little piece that makes it the bigger mosaic, as Nicole said, where if you have it settled in that one place, where if you create your memories in that place, it will make it feel more like home. And you also can help, it can be very, very helpful to fill it with all this sensory familiarity. Things like candles that remind you of home, maybe a stuffy that reminds you of home, maybe a certain mood or a light. They have the mood lights and all that stuff. So keep in mind the fact that we don't just receive things visually. Any single like blankets, all that sort of stuff, make it not just cozy, but make it familiar to you. For me, very specifically, it's always having apple and cinnamon candles or like air freshener, because that's home to me. That's just, it's my mom and she loves that smell. And even if I don't love it as much as she does, just having it there makes it feel like home.
Yeah.
I think food also.
Yes. Oh my God.
Like, I think the smell that remains after you cook something and the familiarity of it, I think is like really reminiscent.
Yeah.
And it can bring a lot of memories.
Whenever I make hot chocolate for you guys, like the hot chocolate from Oaxaca, they always see me. I'm on top of the pot like this because I can't get enough of the smell. It just reminds me of home.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be on a break and be right back. Bye. So we're back.
Welcome back.
We're back. And yeah, so we've had all things about what is home, what reminds you of home, about how home is more ambiguous or more straightforward, or it can be many at the same time. So we've discussed a lot of things, but with the idea of home comes also the thought of the fact that sometimes when you leave a specific place, because oftentimes home is associated to a house. Not every house is a home, but oftentimes it's associated to a house. So when you leave that space and then you return to it, there's an idea that it sometimes may not be the same as you left it. And I find that incredibly curious because, and by being not the same, it does not imply just the superficial, like physical things. Obviously sometimes there are physical changes. Sometimes the signs on the roads change. Sometimes the paint of the building changes. But it is also how it is not the same in more emotional or physiological senses as well. So it's this idea that I found very curious, that once you leave your home country, you never really go back to the same place that you left, which is quite curious. And I often hear it from my parents who are immigrants when they go back to their home country, being like, this place is so different from what it was when I left. And they don't just oftentimes mean in terms of, like I said, the superficial things, because that's also there, but they mean the people are sometimes no longer there. And even if they are there, they're no longer the same sometimes. So there's a lot of that, and the thought of going back home often brings like nostalgia and a lot of excitement because, and I mean like positive nostalgia in the sense of like, I'm going to see all those things again, the things that I've been craving for this whole time. I'm going to see it again. I'm going to experience it again. But then you also have this bittersweet anxiety and fear, which is like, but will it be the same? Will they accept me the same? Will I fit right back in, or is it going to be difficult for me? Do I remember all the streets? Do I know all the people? Do I know the new people? That's a lot of like anxiety and bittersweet feeling that you get from the process of like preparing to go back home, or like actively going back home. And there's the idea that something that I've already mentioned once, but I find is like very beautiful, is the idea that nothing can be home, yet everything can be home. Which means that in certain situations, nothing tangible can give you the sense of home. Like you can look for it everywhere. You can try looking for it in people, but you won't get it. But then one day you might stumble upon something so insignificant and that will give you the sense of home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very it's a dichotomy, where in the sense like sometimes places may not be the same, so it may give you like that's not home, but then you have memories associated with those places, and that's what gives you the sense of home there. And then there's the idea maybe that people change, but you still have a relationship with them. The relationship may change, but you're still with them. So even though the change in the person may not give you home anymore, the fact that you still have a relationship with them of some sorts give you a certain sense of comfort. And other times new people come in and old people leave. And you can find that familiar sense of comfort. You can build it in new people as well. Which is the whole interesting idea of like building home away from home and like finding home and like curating it. It can be conscious efforts, but it can also be more like unconscious things that you just pick up or think of on the back of your head.
Do you think that this idea of like a changing home and the fact that, it's not always going to be the same may also have to do with the fact that we change, our perspectives change, and that's why it will never be the same because our perspective has been fully shifted by the other people, experiences, and places that we have also either decided to call home or just lived?
Yeah, definitely, because
Definitely,
it's part us and part environment, and both change. Sometimes you change for better or for worse. Sometimes your environment changes for better or for worse.
Yeah.
So I think it's just both of it acting in tandem.
for sure. Or like, the more you grow up, you're more open to new perspectives and you realize a lot of things as well. And sometimes you realize how some things were not the way that they were, and that changes your idea of home as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's I think something very beautiful, and it's the idea that it leads me to the idea of how you can find home in smaller things as well. Like Renata already mentioned, like the olfactory senses. Like for me personally, olfactory senses always give me the sense of home. Like as a child, whenever I would travel and I would come back home and I would be in my own bed, it's a different kind of sleep altogether.
Yes.
Like when I was and I always associate it to smell, because my parents would open the door to our house and walking in and I get hit with the smell of home, and that's very comforting, very calming, very soothing. And if you ask me what it smells like, I won't be able to tell you the notes of that scent, because it's just comfort and it's what is comforting to me. Because again, different scents are comforting for different people, and there's a whole psychology behind it, and it's very intricate. But I find it very beautiful that even as a little child, I was very aware of the fact that when I'm traveling or when I'm away, I am in spaces that I consider other people's home. I am in a space that I consider my parents' home. And then I get back to my home and I feel this sense of relief and comfort. And I've noticed my parents experience the same, but with their own homes. So I think that's a very beautiful idea. And on almost the same idea, there is an amazing article on BuzzFeed by Koul, and it will definitely be linked in the description. But she talks about a lot of things, and it's a very anecdotal article, one that I would highly recommend. It's a beautiful read. And she mentions the idea of like when we think of the homes that we left behind, it literally will be just a collection of rooms that we cannot fill anymore. Because those homes and those houses, and this is specifically with the idea of a physical, tangible building as a home, because that is also home for a lot of people. So if you were to go back to that same building that you lived in 10 or 15 years ago, you will not be able to fill it the same way that that a version of yourself 10 or 15 years ago was able to fill it. Even if you bring back every tangible thing that that room had, and even if you try to think as this version of yourself from 10 or 15 years ago, you wouldn't be able to fill that room the same way that you were in that point in time.
You know how this is so true. Our apartment back in Mexico, we changed a lot of things, but my room has stayed as is from the day that I left it when I was 9 years old. And every single time I go, there's my same drawer with my same things and all that. Like, there's a lot of things that have been cleared out, but it looks the same. And it's not home the way that it used to be home anymore. Everything is there. The books, the reads, the toys, but it's not home the same way that it was. And it's bittersweet because it's something, it's so incredible and so comforting knowing that there was once a place, and this one place meant so much to you and was so comforting. It was a safe space for you that later on down the line it no longer is because you have found it elsewhere.
Yeah. And you've learned to find that comfort somewhere else. And that's definitely like the story of, like Nicole mentioned in detail, the story of like third cultural children, where you don't necessarily feel the need to be tied to one physical place. Your identity is in like fragments. And it doesn't mean that like a certain percentage of me is a certain identity or connected to a certain place. 100% of me is connected to all of those places.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't feel as though my identity is like a Venn diagram. It's all 100% and they merge and they combine, and it's the same, but it's also different at the same time. Like I said, it's everything, but it's also nothing at the same time.
I think it's the same way that last episode we discussed how, love is not finite. You can be like, oh, I love you only 20%. And the other 20% is for my stuffies. And then the other 30% is for food. Whatever it is, like, it's not finite. All of you can love all of those things. Just like all of you can be home and can find home in all of those places.
Yeah, you don't have to like chop yourself up and delegate it to different parts.
We're not an Excel sheet, guys.
So, and she also explores the article again. She explores the idea of like when you return from having seen the world, things change in size. So I think like easiest way of describing it would be when I left the place that I lived in until the age of like 3 or 4, I thought of the place that I stayed in as very small. I thought the house that I lived in was very small. Things around me were very small, very limited. Again, as a 3 or 4-year-old, I didn't really travel much, even in the place. It was quite limited. But when I did move somewhere else and then I came back for the first time, suddenly things had changed. Everything was bigger, everything was brighter, everything smelled more potent, food tasted better, the water, I don't even know what it is. The water even tasted different. And I mean like water from like nature source, like it's not tap water or mineral water that I'm talking about. So I think like I do sometimes agree that things change in size and in proportion oftentimes, and it's very interesting. And I think it's definitely a matter of perspective. That's what happens, because when you see different countries and you see different worldviews, the perception that you have in your own head changes as well.
That's
definitely
crazy to think, the fact that, like, it's so mind-blowing. It's still gonna be, I don't know, 36 meters squared. It will forever be that size. But to you, the fact that you're able to fully perceive it differently, that's insane.
Yeah.
Your mind goes, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me show you something cool. And it does that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I think a lot of it is because, like we already mentioned, that oftentimes the feeling has less to do with the place and more to do with other things that there were around you. Now, that may be people, that may be oftentimes even hearing the language.
Yeah.
Like hearing it back later, it sounds different to you when you've acquired 2 or 3 languages more. Yeah, it sounds different to you, because I have learned my languages that I do speak in like patches of time. So I can, in my memory, as far as I can go, I can tell that to me, the languages that I speak today all sounded different when I didn't speak them. And like when I didn't associate them to a certain identity of home. So it definitely has a lot to do with the things that we associated with, but also to do with the version of ourselves that we associated with. Oftentimes when we miss something, we're missing not just the tangible thing, but also the emotions that it gave us, and the emotions that it gave a version of us, and the version of us that was around it and within it. And a lot of times you feel like the impulsive urge, like, oh my god, I just want to leave. I just want to leave and go home. And even though you have that impulsive urge in your head, you're not craving that building. You're craving that sensation you had when you were, I don't know, 15 and in the middle of the pandemic. You're craving that sensation that you had, or that emotion, or the association that you had with that place, and less of the place. That's why I think to define home as a craving. And with that comes another idea of like of the fact that moving back in is more difficult than moving out in the first place.
I think that's so true.
Yeah, because I think of it like, if I move out of a place, the people who are left behind have moved around and played a game of Tetris to rearrange themselves to fill that gap, or like to some extent fill that gap. There will still be my memories.
They've moved on with their life in their way without us in it.
Yeah, and we will be there in some small gaps, in some small ways. But if you try to go back there with what you are now, which is different from what you left with, you will not be able to perfectly rearrange and fit that Tetris game again.
I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. That's a beautiful way of putting it.
And I think of that often because with time, like I said earlier, we change and the environments around us change, and both adapt at the same time. So you may not find yourself being able to become the same person that you were back then. And not for yourself, even sometimes for other people. And that is also the idea of culture shock and reverse culture shock, I think.
Yeah. Oh my god. The first time that they introduced this to us in university, I was like, what do you mean? Everything makes so much sense. Reverse culture shock is a thing. I thought it was the Lulu.
And it is something so simple. It's not like big things. It's so simple as like walking into the right side of the car instead of the left to sit into the driver's seat. Or like, I don't know. I find this so curious because in my life, I concern myself with 5 or 6 currencies. And the constant thing in my head, like, now I'm living here. So I'm thinking in the currency that I'm working with right now. And then I go home and I automatically, it'll take me a day or two like to conceptualize that how is this 0.02? This would have cost 200.
Yeah.
So that concept is very hard to grasp and takes me a while. But then you're again also able to switch back so often. And this is like a whole other world and like a completely curious case.
For me, it's a lot of like saying good morning. Here, you don't like it's you go into a store and it's like, oh yeah, morning, but that's about it. You don't really go around strangers telling good morning or things like that. Back home in a big city, it does not matter. You step into an elevator, you have to say good morning. You sometimes, if it's the building elevator, even if you don't know everyone in the building, you have to say how are you. And before you step out of the elevator, you also have to ask for permission. We say con permiso, which basically means like, oh, excuse me. Every single time, smiling at strangers as well. Like it's such a re-entry shock, and then when you leave, it's a re-entry shock back, and then it's this never-ending loop of
Culture shock is very curious. But that and like how what I mentioned earlier kind of brings me to like this point that I think would be very apt to conclude today's episode, which is the idea that we're often like a puzzle, and each piece is a little bit of every place we've been to, every person we've met, every experience we've had. So we do carry a little bit of every home we've ever had with us. So it's wholesome, and it like, so the idea that to some extent it does stay with you in memories, in scents, in trinkets. I'm a hoarder of trinkets, so things definitely stay with me in trinkets. But again, it's just that even your personality, your habits, sometimes certain words you say, vocabulary, mannerisms, items of clothing, so many things, tangible and intangible, that you have are made up by the people and the experiences and the places that you've had in your life.
I think it's, yeah.
Exactly. It's like a mosaic of things.
If
Yeah,
it's a
it is a
mosaic,
mosaic of
if
things.
it's collage, whatever it is. For some people, it's a jersey. I think, to me, that's one of the things that keeps me attached to my roots. Like, even if it's, I try, and I think you define what home is to you and how you want to adapt it and put it forth. And to me, it's as simple as like wearing a jersey when it's about to be Independence Day tomorrow, from when this is gonna get released.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. It's just a little such a simple little thing that you keep and you incorporate, and you make your own idea of home.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to end today's episode.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and let us know what you think about it in the comments if you have any thoughts, opinions. We're open to hear all of you guys out. But yeah, that's about it from us. And come knocking by whenever you want. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye.